Hello and welcome back to the Ain't Dead Yet podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our official sponsor, Sun Life Organics. Love, heal, and inspire. Sun Life Organics is a juice bar that has locations all across the United States, providing only the highest quality organic ingredients. I love it. Personally, I go just about every day. My favorite smoothie is the Holy Cow. It's packed with 50 grams of protein, and it always helps me recover. Go find one near you. Another official sponsor of today's podcast is Noble Origins. Noble is a grass-fed beef protein complex, utilizing everything in the cow from nose to tail. It's personally my favorite protein. I like the vanilla the best. I like to mix it with raw milk. That is my favorite combination, but the chocolate is also amazing. I also had mentioned with additional sponsor, Sun Life Organics, that they have a shake smoothie called the Holy Cow. They also utilize Noble protein in order to hit that 50 grams in that shake. So again, go order it. Check them out, nobleorigins.com. Use code ADY for 15% off. Love y'all. Hello and welcome back to the Ain't Dead Yet podcast. On today's episode, we're going to have a conversation around a Q&A that was posted online. I intended originally to make this just kind of a, in addition to Q&A, but it blew up so much. There was so many comments and so much feedback. We decided to do it like a singular episode on it, and I think it's important. But the question that was posed that has now turned into this full episode, which you're about to hopefully listen to or hear or watch, is centered around what makes a great man and what makes a weak man, and how polarizing those things are, but at the same time, how fine of a line you have to walk in order to be on one side or the other. And so when I first had asked that question, it was for my own kind of selfish growth, if you will. I was seeking feedback from other men to see kind of how they felt about, what they thought made a great man, what they thought made a weak man. And then the plan was to reflect on that and see where I could grow and get better. It quickly turned into a good portion of that occurred. And also a lot of people with a lot of feelings around what makes a weak man, and a lot of frustration. And the majority of that feedback came directly from women. So, and I don't want to generalize all women, but I would say that most women that have feedback around a man's presence or lack of presence should be valued. And I think it's something we can learn from as men. And so I took it really seriously once they started reaching out and sharing some of these things. I had one person go as far to send me, and I have it in front of me, essentially an entire series on a list of things that she has made for her sons to teach them as they grow in age, to make sure that they develop into good men. And I'm not 100% sure. I didn't ask because I didn't want to cross any boundaries, but I'm pretty sure that the father's not in their life at all. After reading through these things, it sounds like he's probably not. And if he is, I apologize. Again, I'll keep that name anonymous, but for what it's worth, I think that there's so much here to cover and talk about. So we're just going to jump right into it. Starting with when the question was posed, what makes a great man? So I want to start there. On this show, we've had multiple guests, and we've asked them, hey, what are the 3 characteristics of a good man? Give me 3. And we've gotten a range of answers, from honesty to varying levels of accountability to fitness to a man who's emotionally aware and sane, a man who's committed, dedicated, loyal, all these things. And I think instead of just using these big buzzwords, it makes more sense to dive into what each of those things mean, because I think they mean different things to different people. My level of commitment to something looks a lot different than person B or C or D. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you have to have that understanding that there's not alignment in these things always, especially when we're using these big, vague buzzwords. So as we move through that, please give me some grace. But I'm going to try to actually explain what they mean to me and what I think they mean to the people that I look up to. So first things first, for me, what makes a great man? I think step one, number one, top of the food chain is accountability. You have to be accountable as a man, meaning own your shit, like whatever it is, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. If you fuck up, you make a mistake, you have to own it. You have to stand on it. I can say that because for a large portion of my life, I avoided that accountability specifically. My whole purpose in life prior to changing my life was to kind of escape any type of pressure from accountability. It was like it was everyone else's fault. It was always something to blame, person, place, or thing, anything outside of me, environment, situation, whatever it may be. You know, I've told you guys before, I've been arrested 4 different times. At those points in my life, that was never my fault, right? It was, that cop was a dick, or, wrong place, wrong time, or I can't believe that guy had night vision on the lake and saw me back the boat out of the boat slip and gave me a DUI. Like these types of things, that was where my head was at. There was no accountability. Not that I'd been out drinking all day and all night, or that I'd decided to like break up a fight, or that I decided to go out for my 21st birthday and get blackout drunk and get lost and all these different things. Point being, I avoided accountability at all costs. Now in my life, my entire goal is, if I do something, is to stand on it. And so I would say the next word within accountability that's important is honesty. And so anybody that knows me knows that I will ask them, just shoot me straight. Just tell me the truth. I don't want to hear no lies. I grew up in that. And I think that's why I lived a large portion of my adulthood in that world, because that's what I knew, from one side, not saying that was occurring on both sides of my family, because that would not be true. There was a lot of honesty from my mom, brutal honesty, if we're being honest. And there was a lot of honesty and more on a compassionate side from my stepdad. But my biological father struggled to tell the truth. It is what it is. And again, everything that I'm saying today, nothing of it's to carry malintent. It's just to paint the picture. So anybody that knows me knows I just want you to tell me the truth. Like there's no truth you can tell me that can hurt me worse than you lying. I can't stand when someone looks me in the face and tells a lie. I think it exposes so much about someone's character. And so I will ask someone directly, just shoot me straight. Just tell me the truth. And if I know you're lying, I will continue to ask that question just to stack it. It's like, okay, well, you told me 30 times that this was the case, but now we have evidence that this is not the case. So, where's the miss? And I think that the reason I probably do that subconsciously is because that's what it took for me to click out of it. I think there's a lot of reasons people lie. I think at the root of most of it, it's fear. Again, especially for men, I think it's fear or shame or guilt. But at the end of the day, like, the truth's going to come out. Like, everything that happens in the dark comes to the light. So you can either stand on it now, or you're going to have to stand on it later and look foolish. That's kind of the choice that you have. And so I think honesty is directly underneath accountability. The next thing that's within accountability that I think is important to talk about: you cannot be accountable to anyone else unless you're accountable to yourself. I know for myself, and again, I can speak for myself and the people that I try to look up to and I try to follow, that means a lot of really hard, honest conversations in the mirror. Really uncomfortable shit. Like, not fun, not like, I hear these things and I see them on Instagram all the time, like, wake up in the morning, go look in the mirror and tell yourself how just incredibly wonderful you are. I'm not sure. Like, there's been days where I felt really great when I wake up, but there's always something to critique or improve upon. So I don't believe in that necessarily. I think honesty is better than just this self-promotion of a falsehood. I think that's part of the reason that society's where it's at, is people bullshit themselves into believing that they're good people and doing the right things, and they continue to hurt others and themselves and their environment and everything around them. Versus taking accountability in the mirror. Hey, like, an example would be like, in the morning, I wake up, there's something that I did the day prior that I'm not proud of. Looking in the mirror and saying, talk to yourself like, Trip, this was wrong. You made a mistake. This is what it's rooted in. This is why you did it. And this is how you keep from letting that same thing occur again. Like that's kind of the thought process or the approach behind it. The next part of that's the most important part of that, though, is like awareness. Great. I think awareness is, you can't take action without the awareness. You have to have that awareness. But the next step is what matters. It's what you do with that information. So if you make the wrong decision and you make a mistake, instead of blaming everything around you or acting like you're innocent or you're ignorant to it, which is rarely the case. Like most people aren't walking around ignorant to the decisions that they're making. They might act that way in order to free themselves from the guilt and the shame, but they're not ignorant to it. So if you're not ignorant to it, you have to take action, which means you can't replicate the same thing, or you shouldn't replicate the same thing, or you should at least attempt to not replicate the same thing. The biggest sweeping example of that in my life was sobriety. I don't know how many times I looked in the mirror and kind of was just like, dude, you're fucking up. Like, what are you doing? And then doing it again and again and again and again. And if there's anybody walking this planet that knows, like, no one changes until they're ready to change, it's me. There was nothing that broke me down that made sense on paper. It wasn't legal troubles. It was none of that kind of shit. It wasn't losing relationships, friendships, family stuff, money. No, I didn't care about any of that. It was, to me, I believe, a God thing. I don't think anyone else could have shook that up in me, where I had to look at myself and it was deeper than just like face to face. It was within my soul and saying, like, this is all the shit you're carrying around. And like the best, like metaphorically, I would explain it like being packed full of bricks. And the only way to heal or get better is to start looking at those bricks and acknowledging them for what they are, and then removing them piece by piece. And then over time, you get lighter and you get lighter and you get lighter. I think the hard part about life is there's always more bricks because we're human. You're going to continue to make mistakes. Oftentimes, the growth that needs to be recognized, though, is that it's not the same mistake. So an example for me would be like not going back to drugs and alcohol. Like not making that mistake is a positive win for me. Or not pursuing the things that fill the voids that exist in my heart and in my soul. For me, that would be like anything with a dopamine rush. Everything from chasing women that I shouldn't be chasing to gambling to like going out and acting stupid and doing like all these things, spending money, reckless spending, shopping, whatever it is, whatever your thing is, you have to be able to acknowledge it and you have to be able to take action on it. And I think as men, we need to lead the way in that, lead the way in that specifically. So all of that falls within the accountability chain. The other thing that I think men need to be accountable for is not just their ability to look at their mistakes and make corrections, but they need to be accountable to be able to perform at a certain level. Like, to me, and this is my personal opinion, unless you're capable as a man, like you're capable to protect what you have and protect the good in the world, then you can't really consider yourself a good man. Like if you can't do those things, you can't be a good man. And I think the argument a lot of people have is like, not all men are wired that way. And I struggle with that concept because like primally, I think all men are wired that way. Like we're wired to provide and protect. I think there's been a lot of damage and baggage that's been carried for generations that's created this different narrative where that's not the responsibility of a man, that we've kind of messed up. But I think at the end of the day, it's our duty to provide and protect. So if you're not capable of providing and protecting, then you can't be a good man. You can't be a great man. That means not just taking care of your head, right, upstairs, like not just like the mental, emotional side, but you need to be physically capable, right? It's the same way. Like if you only go to the gym and build muscles, but you're, built out of glass up top, you're also not, you can't be a good man. You can't show up as a good man. It takes constant work in every one of those realms. And faith's another piece of that for me. Like you have to constantly be working in that in order to grow as a man. So I think within all of that, it's like a self-checkup daily of like in the mirror, this is what's going on in my life. This is how I'm performing. This is how I'm behaving. These are my current crutches. This is where I'm failing. Writing those things down and then going to work on them like immediately and sticking to them. I think we get lost sometimes, and I know I do. I've done this so many times where we set a goal and, the first few weeks is easy. The first few months can be easy. And then we get, years into this process and we're wondering all of a sudden why we're losing traction or why we're not growing or why we're not improving or where's my purpose or I'm losing myself. You have all these thoughts as a man. And it's a lot of times because we get away from the basic fundamentals of the things that helped us get to that point to begin with. I can tell you for me, like there are certain things that I have to do every single day, period, in order to get to a place where I can actually grow. So baseline for me doesn't mean waking up. Like to me, that isn't baseline. Baseline is waking up at a certain time, reading certain things in the morning, exposing myself to certain things in the morning, moving my body, creating sweat in the morning. Like that's more of a baseline for me. Whereas like for some reason in society today, baseline's like, well, I woke up today. Well, good. Like, what are you doing with it? So I think that that's another varying or different level of accountability that needs to be recognized. I think that on the flip side of that, on the great man side, and we've talked a little bit about the weak man side of it, there are, I think, different opportunities in life to impact people. And your impacts might not come from the place that you expect them. And it might not come from the conversations or the experiences or the environments that you expect them. But what has been a constant in my life, especially over the last 5 years, is the conversations or the things that have happened in my life that have been the most disruptive have painted the clearest picture down the road. Like more to be revealed, if you will. And I think the other thing that needs to be recognized as a man as a key quality or component is patience. Like we have this like fix it now type mentality. And I think that that's appropriate again to certain things. Like there are certain things, I'm trying to like draw a parallel here to make it make sense. But if I have an addiction to drugs and alcohol, I need to take immediate action on that. And to be honest, you should expect immediate results once you take immediate action on that thing. But there are certain things in life, if you take immediate action on, it doesn't necessarily yield immediate results. Fitness is one of those things. You have to be patient. You have to continue to put in the work. Mental, emotional health is one of those things. You have to be patient. You have to put in the work, do the reps, and eventually the picture paints itself. Same thing spiritually. So there's things in life that require immediate action that you should expect immediate reaction to. And then there's other things that you have to understand take time. And I think as a man, understanding what to be patient with and what not to be patient with is so critically important. So that was another one. I'm going to dive into some of the things that were shared because those were the big things for me that I just talked about. Like, I think that's what I try to focus on daily, and that's what's most important to me. And I'm going to dive into some of the things that were shared, though, because I think there was some really awesome stuff in here. So the first, like, stark, I would say, like, comparison of strong man, weak man that I got is very closely tied to what I just said. Responsibility, number one, which is also AKA accountability in a lot of ways. But strong man owns his actions and their impact, follows through even when it's convenient. That last part I didn't talk about in my spiel. I just dropped, but like that is the truth. Like if you gave your word, you better do it. And that's what you're going to be remembered by. There are people that I've met or meet that have told me lies that I already knew the truth to. And then I found out more information that contributed to that lie. And at the end of the day, they're never going to be accountable to that, to themselves, right? So you have to be able to also make a decision like, okay, I'm just not going to associate with that person. That's just who they are, right? If they want to change, God will provide them the opportunity to change in front of the people that he lied to or she lied to. But that's not your job. You're not God. You're not going to create that situation. So I think that's important. So even when it's inconvenient, tell the truth. Even when it's inconvenient, do the right thing. A weak man makes excuses, blames others, and avoids accountability. We've already hit on that. All right. The next one, and this one's from a female, and it's emotional leadership. So we talk a lot about providing and protecting, and from like I don't even know if this is a word, but like a Neanderthalic thought process, we always go to like, must provide food and shelter, must protect with violence, right? Like that's where man brain goes. And I think this is where the feminine balance is so healthy, because it's a great reminder of like, you can't provide stability, you can't protect the people around you if you're not in a place of like emotional stability, if you're not in a good spot in your head, right? And especially if you can't manage your emotions. So strong man regulates his emotions, leads with calm presence, not chaos. Weak man reacts impulsively, lets anger, ego, or insecurity control him. So I think that this is something that's constantly tested as you grow as a man. Like me 5 years ago, if you lie to me, I'm slapping you. Like if you're a man, like I'm telling you, like that was the outcome. We're going to go at it. Like I don't care who it was, why it was, it didn't matter. That's shifted as I've grown, because you realize like that doesn't change anything. At the end of the day, it just makes you look silly, right? Because you reacted poorly. You reacted on an impulsive level. The mature thing to do in my mind is have a conversation. If somebody wants to say certain things or act a certain way, let them do those things. But my rule of thumb now, especially when it comes to reactionary stuff, when it comes male to male, like I'm not going to put my hands on anybody unless they put their hands on me, or they put their hands or harm someone close to me that I care about. But outside of that, like part of growing up as a man is like you stop fighting just to fight. Like that's boy stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I think men need to learn to have conversations and to be able to regulate themselves emotionally while they have these conversations. That means not screaming, yelling, blowing the lid off the jar. And the way to prevent all of that from occurring is to deal with things as they come up. Most of the people that you see react really impulsively or like have like this really like big explosion, it's because they've buried all this shit and they haven't dealt with any of it. And so a lot of times those people come off as crazy, calm, cool, and collected, like almost nonchalant, like don't care, but they're burying it. And then one day you read in the newspaper that they completely snapped and like, you know, lit a parking garage on fire or whatever. So I think that it's important to regulate your emotions and do it regularly. So provision, again, and this is from a female, and this is the difference. This is why it's so important from a male's perspective to have a female's perspective on what like a strong, good woman is seeking from a man. But she goes into provision, and it's beyond money, right? That's the first thing that she wanted to highlight. It's beyond money. Strong men create emotional, spiritual, and physical safety. They plan ahead and consider others. So all of those things should and can be provided by a good man. It's easy for a good man to plan ahead. It's easy for a good man to consider others and how they might feel or react to certain situations. All of these things, I think, are wrapped into why the provision piece is deeper than just financial, right? Weak men lives for the moment, right? Neglects needs he doesn't feel personally. So the way that I would think of that is like anybody who If a man thinks provision is flexing financial status, there's a really good chance there's a deep insecurity wound there. And I don't know what it is. Like, people will laugh and joke and say it's a million different things, and you probably know what I'm alluding to. But a lot of times, it's true. It holds truth just in different ways. So, like, and you can tell, the easiest way I tell people, like, go to someone's Instagram page. Everyone has social media, or their Facebook. If their whole page is centered around, like, their jewelry, their cars, like their lifestyle, and nothing else, there's a really good chance, like, they don't have the right, like, mentality to be a good man at that current time. Like, their levels of provision are centered, like, specifically around finances. And I'm not saying finances aren't important again, but it's deeper than that. There needs to be more. So I think that that's important. Communication. So speaks with clarity, honesty, compassion, listens to understand. This was the hardest thing for me to learn. I can tell you that. I think for a long time, the way my brain operated was I was listening to come back, right? Like, I was listening to reply, to respond, versus listening to understand. And I think learning to listen means learning how to ask questions. So if you really want to listen to someone's response, then you need to ask the question in a way that actually, encourages them to share from a place of vulnerability or honesty. So if you yell at someone and you're like, example, tell me the fucking truth, right? You're probably not going to get the fucking truth. But if you sit down with them and you say, hey, I noticed that there's been a communication challenge between us lately. I'm unsure what's at the root of it. I really just want to understand it so that we can actually take action on it and improve and move through this thing without causing any harm to one another. You're probably going to get a better answer. You're probably going to get better feedback. Now, is that audience dependent? Sure. Like, are there certain people that are going to lie no matter what? Absolutely. But you're going to have better odds with the latter, right? Whereas if you're yelling or you're trying to drag the truth out of someone, you're going to struggle to get it. So I thought that the communication note was important and good. Weak man deflects, shuts down, or manipulates with silence, sarcasm, or guilt. You see this all the time. I think that it is so easy, especially the more intelligent you are. This is why I don't buy into the thought process of people are ignorant to the decisions that they're making, especially if they have the capability to manipulate, right? If you have the capability to manipulate, you have enough intelligence to also be aware of what you're doing, right? Those two things aren't separated. So if you have the intelligence, you can't have the ignorance, right? You can utilize it, and people might buy that, but anyone with any level of intelligence is also going to look at that and say, like, I doubt that they're actually ignorant to whatever they're doing. Men are really good at this, and there's women that are really good at this too, but they basically, like, if you come at me and say, hey, I don't like that you're doing X, Y, and Z, a lot of people will deflect in that moment and be like, well, I only do that because you do X, Y, and Z. Or, you didn't do this last week, or you didn't do this yesterday, or you said this. And, like, you can acknowledge that, and you can even say to certain people, like, yes, I did do that, and we've discussed that, and I've apologized for it, and I'm trying to move past it. But if they're not willing to meet you there, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be a deflection. And a deflection is a direct representation of a person's inability to look at themselves. That's all. Like, to boil it down to bare nuts, that's what it is. So if you deflect or you lie, you're literally just saying, I can't look at myself. I don't have the courage to look at myself. I have too much shame. I have too much guilt. I have too much fear, whatever it is. That's what that says to me. And I don't think that's acceptable as a man. I think you need to be able to have that hard look. And I think if you do have that hard look, it's a lot easier to be honest. Like, here's me. Here's who I am. Today's episode is brought to you by our official sponsor, Sun Life Organics. Love, heal, and inspire. Sun Life Organics is a juice bar that has locations all across the United States, providing only the highest quality organic ingredients. I love it. Personally, I go just about every day. My favorite smoothie is the Holy Cow. It's packed with 50 grams of protein, and it always helps me recover. Go find one near you. Another official sponsor of today's podcast is Noble Origins. Noble is a grass-fed beef protein complex, utilizing everything in the cow from nose to tail. It's personally my favorite protein. I like the vanilla the best. I like to mix it with raw milk. That is my favorite combination, but the chocolate is also amazing. I also had mentioned with additional sponsor, Sun Life Organics, that they have a shake smoothie called the Holy Cow. They also utilize Noble protein in order to hit that 50 grams in that shake. So again, go order it. Check them out, nobleorigins.com. Use code ADY for 15% off. Love y'all.
I remember I had a conversation with my mom. This has been months and months ago, but it was around security and insecurity of a man. And I was asking her the questions of like what she saw like in previous experiences that came off or came across as insecure and what she saw as secure. And I think for men, and David Goggins talks about this, and I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. I only drink his tea probably once a week too. You know what I mean? He's not a 7 days a week kind of guy that I like to drink that tea anymore. There was a point in time where that was great, but not anymore. Point being, if like the most secure man on earth can hold a billboard up and say, this is my life, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is where I've failed, these are my flaws. That's security. And that's saying, judge me. Go ahead. Enjoy. Right? Because there's nothing you can say, do, or project that I haven't already reflected on. That's security. Insecurity is painting this totally different picture and then hiding behind it. Right? And that's why a lot of these people that you see that do that are so fragile. And I'm not saying they have to look like physically fragile in stature. I'm talking about fragile up top. Like they're easy to get to. It's really hard to have any type of conversation with depth with them because as soon as you like creep below that surface level, you're striking a nerve that they do not want to go to. They can't touch it. They can't feel it. They've got to avoid it. That's insecurity. Most of the people that tell you you're insecure, like if a man ever walks up to me and says, hey, you're insecure, the first thing I'm going to say is like, okay, help me understand how. Please show me. Like, give me evidence how I'm insecure. And if he's right, by God, I'll go to work on it. But I want him to tell me. And I think that's also important and necessary. We don't have those conversations anymore. It seems like everybody is so afraid of their actual image and what they're portraying versus what exists that you can't even have those conversations with people because they're terrified the truth might come out. And it's like, how do we get to a place, like no one knows anything about anybody. No one values certain things that should be valued, right? And it's because we all want to tell a lie about who we are. And I think social media is a big part of this. But I tell kids this when I go talk to the kids. I tell people this when I talk to them, like what you see on social media and what you get in real life, that is rarely the same thing. I've come across a few people in my life that are the same. Like front to back, you see what you get. Like what you see is what you get. That's so rare. Most of the shit that you see is total bullshit. And it's their friends gassing up their bullshit because they need them to also gas up their bullshit because everybody knows it's bullshit. So at the end of the day, like you have to decide as a man, and I can only speak for men on this, like I want to make sure when you meet me in person that my handshake feels like you thought it would feel when you watched my social media video, or the way that I communicate with you is exactly what you thought it would be based off my social media content, or the way that I work out is exactly the way that you thought it should be based on my content. The easiest way to achieve that is just be honest and truthful. And sometimes that looks like not being the best at shit. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like you're not going to be the best at everything. You could damn sure try and you can compete and you can do all those things, but You have to be able to understand that you're not perfect. And every time you portray this perfect image on this platform, no matter what the platform is, you're going to get exposed. Like, things are going to happen in life. You can only run so long, so far, and hide an image before somebody finally says, like, it's kind of bullshit. You're kind of not that at all. Like, you're not what you represent on social media. You're not like the public thinks. Nah, this just ain't true. So I think that's important. So, and the social media piece was also another comment that I got, was like, someone who's real on social media. I think there's a lot of men that are leaning into it more so now than ever. And I think a lot of that is centered around like this telling the truth piece of like, I think for a long time, men lied to get women, right? And they still do, right? They still tell half truths to get women, and I say get women, I mean like to sleep with women. I think that there's a lot of lying involved in that chase or that pursuit. Just speaking from experience in my 20s. The point being this, though, men are now realizing, like, if you want a good woman in your life, she ain't going to buy that bullshit. So you better get your shit together. Because the more men I talk to now, they don't want the dime piece or the hot chick or whatever. Like, everyone's had that. It's been around. They want a good woman, right? And so I think it's so critically important to understand as a man, if you want a good woman, you better damn sure be a good man, because you're not going to find a good woman acting like you're 18, 19. And I'm not taking a knock at that age. I'm just saying around that age, there's some wild shit that happens that's probably not going to land you a good woman for the most of us. There's some guys that got it together at that age. I certainly wasn't one of them. But point being, like, you can't have an expectation. Like, the best analogy, like, you can't expect to come home with a rose if you're in a weed garden. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to come home with weeds. So the only way to put yourself in that position is to make sure that you're at that level, right? And that doesn't even, the crazy thing about today's our world is, like, you can get tricked. Like, people get tricked all the time. I have buddies that be like, it didn't start that way. It didn't look that way. It didn't feel that way. And then all of a sudden there's this flip. And it's because people lose frame. They can't keep up. And that's just part of it. You have to be able to understand that and check it off and move on, especially if you're holding yourself to a high level of accountability. People think they want that life, and then they get into it and they can't hang. There's no way, because it's not tolerable. So I think that it's so important to understand as a man, you're going to have that. But if you want a good woman, you better damn sure be a good man. And you have to stay in that. I think God tests you, is what I believe. Like, your greatest tests come before your greatest gifts. And I've said that on here many a times. But for me, can you show up and be a good man in the face of the devil, if you will, right? I'm not calling women the devil. I'm saying in these temptations and lust and all the things that the world throws at you on social media, can you still show up and be a good man when it's uncomfortable? It's inconvenient. I think that that's so important. And I didn't get that until I was 30. Right. And I've still fallen short. And a lot of that has to do with my own shortcomings and failures and flaws. Right. And being able to look at those things now and be like, okay, how do we avoid that from occurring again? Okay, well, that means I need to take this action. I think that's the only way you get where you need to go. Again, most people, it seems like in today's society, will say, like, if you look at a failed friendship or relationship, partnership, marriage, whatever, any of those things, it doesn't have to be one in particular. And you say, and you talk to somebody and everything they say is like, this person did X, Y, and Z, and that's why it didn't work. There's some, like, probably guaranteed bullshit to that. It's a joint effort. Like, it takes two to tango. It takes two people to make something work, and it takes two people to really fuck something up, right? Now, I'm not saying there aren't situations where one person doesn't implode and self-sabotage and ruin everything. Like, that happens too. But that's rarely the case. usually there are contributing factors that you can control to prevent yourself from putting yourself in that situation ever again. And I think as a man, you have to be able to look at things like that. And that's not just in relationships, it's in business too. Like if you're in business for yourself, you're going to lose money. You're going to fuck up. And it's what you do, right? If you look and you're like, oh, it's that contractor's fault, or damn, the trucks didn't show up on time. It was too hot. They didn't have no ice in the mix. The fucking shit kicked off too soon. We couldn't finish it on time. Whatever. No, you didn't plan it appropriately. And sorry to go off on a rant on concrete. I'm just saying that's my game. So it's like, it's all about what you can do or how you can improve. And there's a book, Jocko Willink wrote it, called Extreme Ownership. And if you're a man listening to the show and you haven't read that book yet, I don't care if you do it on audio books, buy the hard copy, read the book word for word, and it will set you free in so many ways, because it takes all of the power back to say, I put myself in this situation. What can I do differently? And I think we need to get back to a place of that as men, where it's like, were you with someone who treated you wrong? Great, got it. Why were you with them? Own that. What they did doesn't matter. How you showed up, or how you connected, or where you were at when you connected with that person, that's what matters. That's on you as a man, right? So I think we got to get to that place. And sorry, I went a little bit long on that rant. So next one, integrity. So his actions align with his values, even when no one is watching. Whew. Again, this is, I think, one of the hardest things to achieve, right? Because that temptation doesn't ever leave. I oftentimes ask myself, like, Trip, would you still, this morning's a great example. So I went to bed last night, 7:30. Old ass man, I guess. Woke up at like 3. And I was like, all right, we're ready to go. I got a big day today. I've got both businesses. I have things moving. There's workouts. There's a track workout I want to go to with a run club. There's a lunch I want to have with someone. There's, podcasts. There's SCSI stuff. There's all this shit to do. But I've asked myself, like, would I still show up and do those things if it wasn't celebrated, right? And I think the good men do. If you took social media away today, you could bet your ass I'll get up in the morning and get to work. Same with, there's other people out there that you can just, you know it intrinsically. Nick Bear is another one. I've talked about him on here so many times. If I'm up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m., I know what that guy's doing. You could take social media away, he's still going to be doing it. It's how he's wired. Same with David Goggins. Same with Cam Haynes, Truett Haynes. All these people, they have this schedule, this routine that they do not break, and it's not for show. And I think that that's so empowering as a man, because no one can take that away from you, right? No one can take away, like, you knowing you did the right thing behind closed doors. And I can say that because I can't tell you how many times I've done the wrong thing behind closed doors. And I still fall short in that. There's still, like, a great example. I'm on this, like, I started this 90-day thing to make it 90 days to my 35th birthday. And it was like, all right, it's going to be perfect. I'm going to be perfect for 90 days. Well, that was ignorant to even try to, like, achieve, right? But I've attempted to, but I've failed and I've fallen short in that. But I didn't post about it right away, right? I wasn't proudly messing up. I had to have accountability after the fact, though, because I was like, damn, I didn't keep my word there. I fell short. And that's okay. But what's more important is having the ability to take accountability for it. And I think that's where masculinity comes in. That's where security comes in. Weak man, especially when it comes to integrity, it says performs morality when it benefits him but lacks consistency. Look, I can tell you the quickest way for me to remove someone from my circle is their inability to be consistent. Their inability to do and say, and for those two things to align. If they don't have that ability, you're out. You're getting cut. Because that tells me everything I need to know. You're not going to show up. If you can't show up for your own word or yourself, what makes you think you go show up for me or the people around you or your community? There ain't no way, right? So I think that's a really important piece that needs to get hammered on, specifically for men, is like, it's easy to have integrity when everyone's watching. But when them doors close, like, what are you doing at home? You watching porn? You know what I mean? Are you talking to 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 women at one time? Like, what are you doing? Or are you focused on reading something and learning something, or building something with your hands, or exercising, or sleeping, or cooking food for meal prep? Like, what are you doing in your free time? And I think that a lot of times people get an image of people, and this is where we talked a little bit about this earlier. You put them on a pedestal, and then you actually get to spend time with these people, and you're like, holy shit, like, this isn't even close to what I thought based on their social media presence. Like, they're not any of what I thought they were. And so for me, that would be the most embarrassing thing, I think, to ever have to face, is for someone to like go, like, leave an interaction with me and be like, hey, like, I worked out with that trip dude. Like, he ain't that shit that he posts, right? That's why I keep receipts. Like, go look, go check it out. And we can do it again. We can run it back, because I want that challenge, and it keeps me accountable to myself. But at the same time, like, I don't want anyone ever walking away from an experience with me being like, like, what you see is not what you get. That ain't him. I think that is such like a clear picture of a weak man. And it happens all the time. And I can tell you this, the quickest way to expose a weak man is to put a strong man in front of him, face to face, eye to eye, ask him a question. And if he lies to you, it's a weak man. He can't look a strong man in the face and tell the truth. He don't have it. He ain't it. So if you ever want to expose one, just giving you a little tip, that's exactly how you do it. Now, with that being said, I've been the weak man that couldn't look the strong man in the eye and tell him the truth. I've been on the other side of that coin. What it took was for me to get my shit together and for me to have strong, accountable men around me. Like, you become your surroundings. We've talked about it on here a million times, especially when it comes to men. I can't speak for women, but you become what you're surrounded by. If you're surrounded by weak men, you're going to be a weak man, period. And people associate the wrong things with strength and weakness, right? And because it's all encapsulating. There's so many things that are involved. And so I think that's one of my biggest battles is like, am I around strong enough men in order for me to grow and be better? Or are there men around me that are pulling me back into shit that I don't need to be involved with anymore? It's a constant battle. And how do you help people without getting stuck there, right? How do you help and assist without that becoming your circle and then you falling to that standard? That's a hard thing as a man. So you need both. You need that balance. But I always tell people, like, have something so far ahead of you to chase as a man that no matter how much time you spend helping others that aren't where you're at, you always have that North Star. Because if you don't have that North Star, you end up over here back in this group. I've seen it happen way too many times. Commitment. Strong man builds slowly and intentionally, doesn't play games with people's hearts. This one's from a woman. And I don't think I could agree any more with how she said it, to be honest with you. It takes intentionality to be committed to something. And especially, I feel like this woman in particular is talking about like a romantic relationship, if I'm reading this correctly. It is very clear and obvious if someone has the intention of pursuing that specifically with someone. And it is so clear and obvious when that is not the intention. And so there's this book. Oh, man, I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to tag it in the show notes and figure it out. But essentially one of the lines in there is, and I've heard it on podcasts too, but it essentially says, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no. And I think that's applicable here. It is obvious when a man is committed to something. Like, there's no hiding it. It is so clear. It is so obvious. He will literally, nothing will get in his way. He'll crawl over broken glass for it. If he's not doing that, he ain't committed. A weak man, when it comes to commitment, he loves the idea of it, but runs when it costs him comfort. AKA, most of the time, it costs him, like it makes him look in the mirror, and he ain't ready for that yet. He can't handle that yet. He ain't ready to tell the truth to himself or that person. right? So I think that that's what she was alluding to. But I love, again, what she said here is like, it's intentionality. This one came up, like, probably got 4 or 5 different messages on this specific topic. And you have to forgive me if I start sweating through my shirt. It's hot in here today. But it's respect for women. And it says, strong man sees a woman's strength as complementary, not threatening, honors boundaries and contributions. So the first part of that I want to talk about, I think a lot of this has to do with upbringing. I was raised by a woman, a single mother for years. And then I had my stepdad that came into my life, who I've said it on here a million times, the best man I've ever met in my entire life. If there was one specific thing that was quite literally like beat into me, is you respect women at all costs, right? Now, if that means even when they hurt you, that means no matter what, if you're in that situation, it's because you put yourself there and you still show respect. It is the hardest thing to do sometimes, but there are certain things you don't ever do as a man. And one of those things is disrespect women, right? Especially in a physical way. If you put your hands on a woman as a man, you've lost all respect from me. Like I'll never be able to look at you the same. And that's on God to forgive you. And I think that he might do that, but that's between y'all. I think that there isn't a strong man walking this earth, though, that would ever think that that's okay. So respecting women is protecting women. It says here, weak man competes with or controls women to feel powerful. I think that, unfortunately, where society has gotten flipped is, and there's a lot of people to thank for this, and I say that like half-heartedly in a very smart-ass way. But there's this thought process that the more women that you can control or manipulate or have in your roster, so to speak, as a man, the more powerful you are. That's the biggest crock of shit ever. It's a lie. It's a blatant-ass lie. The strongest thing you can do as a man is commit to one good woman. And I'm telling you from personal experience. And it's hard. It's hard. But once you do it, you'll understand exactly what I'm saying. Because once you truly commit to one woman, one person, and I'm talking to guys right now specifically, you don't see anything else. All that shit goes away. I don't care what anyone says. I've talked to so many men that are believers and this, that, and the other, and they're like, well, you still can appreciate beauty and da-da-da. Like, I don't know about you, bro. Like, if I'm committed to one woman and I'm in love with her, I don't see shit. I don't care about what that girl's got on or what it doesn't matter. It doesn't hit, right? So I think that shows varying levels of commitment, to be honest with you, A. And B, it shows a weakness, right? Because you're being tempted by something that you're not committed to. So I think the strongest thing you can do as a man is commit to one woman. Just make sure she's a good one. Healing and growth. We've talked a lot about this, but it is worded a little bit differently in this message, was acknowledges his trauma and works through it and chooses to evolve. This is one of the hardest things to do as a man, because we're taught to not talk about certain things or share certain things. And I understand why. Like, I think, again, there's so much like polarity, but there's also like understanding is always somewhere in the middle of that. And you have to be able to look at it and be like, well, why are men told from a young age to not share these things vulnerably? Well, the quick and easy answer to that is it makes them look weak, right? That's what you hear. That's the feedback. But what makes you look really weak is walking around broken for the rest of your life. So maybe flip that narrative and be like, okay, now if you're If you're willing to own your shit and not do anything about it, then yeah, I would say that still makes you a weak man. Like men that just sit there and talk about their trauma, like, oh, my dad left when I was 5 and it ruined my life, and that's why I can't have a healthy relationship, and that's why I can't start a business, and that's why. Okay, you're still weak. You're acknowledging your trauma, right? You're acknowledging what it is, but you're not doing anything about it to repair it. So again, those two things go hand in hand. Accountability without action is just bullshit. I can't stand it. People be like, I reflect all the time. I have these conversations with myself all the time. And I just want to be like, well, then why the fuck are you still doing the same thing? Why are we having the same conversation? Those are the people you got to get away from, right? They need to go figure their shit out, but you don't need to be a part of that. So I think, again, this is speaking for men. It says weak man repeats the same patterns and calls it just how I am, right? This is what I just said. Like it's the easy narrative to follow. It's the easy way out. It's the easy thing to do. I've been there. I've done it. Again, I'm telling you all these things and saying these things and sharing these things because I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I've been the guy that cheats or is unfaithful because it's not a truly committed relationship. It's kind of a situationship, and we're just like that. It's all bullshit, right? It's all a lie. It's just how I am. Or my dad was that way. Was my dad a womanizer? Yes. That doesn't mean I have to be, right? And I've proven to myself that I'm not that, and I don't have to be that. But it takes direct action. Same as being a drunk. I hear it all the time. It's like, man, it runs in my bloodline. My dad was a drunk. Well, doesn't mean you got to be. You can also do something about that, right? So accountability means having the awareness and then taking the action. And that's part of healing and growth too. Influence. Inspires others through example, right? So as a man, how do you lead? Do young men look up to you? Do women look up to you? Does your environment around you look up to you and say, like, that person right there is someone I want to emulate? Maybe not all of them, but like something about them I want to learn from or I want to grow from. I think that leading by example, though, is the only way to achieve that. A lot of people are good at this yip yap bullshit. I'm pretty sure there's like a trend going around right now on Instagram. It's like this and yap. It's like most people ain't doing shit and just yap, right? They're just talking, or they're gonna run the half marathon, or they're gonna start a business, or they're gonna treat their family better, or they're gonna fucking wash the laundry when they get home. They don't do any of that shit, right? So point being, like, lead by example. That means doing the work, doing it. Whatever it is, just do it, right? And again, that's all tied back and rooted to accountability and honesty in your word. Because eventually, if you're a man, if your word holds zero weight, you hold zero value. That's how that works, especially when you're in a circle of strong men. You're a joke. They're going to look at you like a joke. They're not going to take anything you have to say serious because they know you got no spine and you ain't standing on shit. So they're going to walk all over you. Doesn't matter how much money you have or how much money you think you have. None of that shit matters, because at the end of the day, strength is in honesty. Strength is in accountability. Weakness, right? When it comes to influence, demands respect without earning it. You see this all the time too. And I think there's so many contributing factors, but it's hard not to throw this at social media and make that part of this too. There are people that demand a level of respect that haven't done shit to earn it. And those are the people that you meet up with in person and you're automatically let down by, right? You're like, well, damn, they're not who they say they are. Yeah, their life looks like X, Y, and Z, but in person, it's broken. It ain't that. And I think that that's what that one was alluding to specifically. I like this next topic a lot that was thrown into this. And it's men, strong men have their thinking is surrounded by legacy. And I love this. I think that I deeply feel and agree with that sentiment. A strong man isn't thinking about just today, right? He's thinking about tomorrow, next week. I'm thinking about my bloodline, like my kids' kids. And what are their lives going to be like based on the decisions I make right now today? Because it does matter. And if you don't think it does, let me sit you down with a therapist and talk through generational trauma. And I can assure you, people say all the time, I don't see how one thing or one decision or what could impact this bigger picture, this bigger item. And it's like the easiest thing in the world to explain. It's like everything you do has a consequence, good or bad. So legacy thinking amongst a strong man is like, how do my decisions today affect tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, next decade, next generation, so forth and so on. I love that one. A weak man thinks selfishly. He asks, what do I get out of this right now? Right. And this is like, this is tied to a lot deeper shit, but it's like, we're all about instant gratification, right? I want to feel better right now. What do I need to do to feel better right now? And then we do it. And then we wonder why that feeling isn't sustained. It's because you're not doing the thing to repair it. You're doing something to patch it, right? Like it's the same, like you think about tires on a car. Like you put a hole in a tire, patch. I ain't gonna lie, I've had some good patch jobs. They lasted a while. But eventually the fucking patch, it goes. And then there's a hole in your tire again. And your tire's flat again. And then eventually you just have to buy a new fucking tire. You got to replace it. Trauma's a lot the same. It's like you have to be able to understand that it's deeper than just fixing something right now and that being enough or that being correct, right? It's much deeper than that. It's about how am I doing, like the things that I'm doing right now, how is it impacting later? Faith and power. So strong men use faith to uplift, heal, and serve, never to control. This has been a tough one for me in the past couple of years. My faith has grown 10x, and it seems like week after week, and it seems like it's being tested in different ways all the time. But I think that's how you know that you're in the right vein, if we're being honest. If your faith's not being tested, you're not moving the needle. I think spiritually, like if you have an impact, whatever negative forces do exist, they're coming after your ass, right? They want to slow you down because they don't want you to create shift, right? So if you are creating shift, expect turbulence, right? Expect adversity. And I think understanding that as a man is so important. Weak men weaponize religion to manipulate, dominate, or excuse harm. So, I mean, I've seen examples of this so many times of different calibers, but it's kind of like do something wrong and expect immediate forgiveness because that's what Jesus would do. Well, I hear you. But there also needs to be action behind that. Again, everything is action-based. Like you want change, you want different, you must take action. That doesn't mean just looking at the problem and acknowledging it. It means taking action. And so I tell people all the time, if you meet someone, and this can be in any realm, right? And they like say they do something to you that's hurtful, and you acknowledge this thing with them, whatever it may be. And they tell you, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that that's what was happening. I apologize," whatever, what have you. Okay, I accept your apology. If they do the same thing again, then they never meant their apology, right? They never really looked at what happened or what went down, or they never considered your feelings, and they're still not doing it, right? So how many times do you need to let someone paint you the same picture before you realize the picture comes out the same, right? Until they're willing to change the brush and the color of the paint, that shit's going to look the same every single time. It doesn't matter how many blank canvases you provide, which aka opportunities, right? If they're not willing to address the things they need to address, it comes out exactly the same every single time. So I think it's important as men to acknowledge that. And that's also why you need to be like constantly on the lookout of, you know, who's in your circle, why are they in your circle, are they upholding the standards to stay in your circle. I've been on both sides. I've fallen out of circles because I wasn't holding up my end, and I've had to elevate a circle because I didn't feel that the standard was being met on the other side. So that's part of that constant growth. That's basically a wrap of all the feedback we got, which was a lot, and we're appreciative of it. But I think at the end of the day, the thing that I want people to walk away from this with is, especially men, is an understanding of like, you're not going to be perfect. It's not about being perfect, but it is about being accountable, and it is about taking action, because you're going to fail. If you're moving the needle and you're pushing, you're going to fail. You're going to fall short. But can you be man enough to look in the mirror, tell yourself the truth, and then go to work on that truth in order to wake up the next day, look in the mirror again, and say, I handled that shit. And can you do that day after day after day after day after day? And if you do that, I promise you, over time, not only will you remove these bricks I spoke about earlier, which generational trauma, all these different things, but you will build your own foundation that the people around you can then use as support, right? That's your frame. The only way to build that frame is you got to tear your shit down first. And I'm going to leave it at that. And that's going to wrap for today's episode of the Ain't Dead Yet podcast. I appreciate your time and attention, your love, your care. Quick shout out to our sponsors, Sun Life Organics, Noble Protein, Strong Coffee. Shout out Strong Coffee. And we got another one in the pipe that I can't announce quite yet, but might be able to by the end of the week. We'll see you guys again soon. Thanks.